Hey everybody, this is Derek. I'm going to be talking with you about something really interesting. Gimp. Gimp. I'm going to take you to the actual Gimp web page here. Gimp is a photo editing, digital imaging software package that's free and available to anyone um, from the Gimp website. One of the things that's important to understand is that this is open source and it's free. Now, this is in direct competition to Photoshop, um, and it allows you to do very similar things than what Photoshop can do. You can go to the GIMP website and you can download GIMP right here and you can install it on your computer. So GIMP is the image manipulation program. It's a freely distributed piece of software for such tasks as photo retouching, image compositing, and image authoring, meaning you can take a photo that already exists and touch it up, meaning you can fix problems in it, you can change colors, retouch it so that the color balance is better, remove things. Let's say that you've got red eye, or you've got something in the image you want to remove. Maybe you want to remove the background to something. Image compositing, composition is when you're creating something completely new. Maybe you want to use lots of different images and create something new. Compose a new image, or compositing, meaning you're going to take lots of different things and then merge them all into one basic screen space, kind of like a collage of some sort. And then image authoring, meaning you can author your own images. You can paint something from scratch. You can sketch. You can draw. You can do digital painting using paint brushes and colored pencils or ink pens and all kinds of different digital tools that give you a texture and a stroke quality much like what you would get if you were using the real instrument. Obviously it's not the real instrument, but you can still do some really great stuff with it. And it'll work on lots of different operating systems. So today I want to give you kind of a basic overview of the interface and how to use it, and then give you just some little demonstrations of doing some basic things. In this demonstration, I'm going to use this link to this little puppy right here, this cute little puppy, and we'll work with this image and we'll make some changes to it. It won't be amazing. We'll just show you how some things, basic things, work. So if you go to this link here, puppy dog eyes 1.jpg or something, and you can download that, and or something like it. You don't have to have this a very image. Any dog image or anything that you want to use is just fine. But if you did happen to have this, you would take this, say save image as, and I'm going to take that image, and my computer will give me the options to put it in a place. So I'm going to put it in my pictures box here. If I can't ever find it on this thing. Maybe my photos. Anyway, all right. So to save time, I'm just going to drop it on my desktop, and I'm just called puppy dog eyes, and I'm going to say save, and it's a JPG. It's a JPEG image. Okay. So I'm going to use that image, and what I can do is I can go to GIMP. So on my desktop, I have GIMP downloaded. It looks like this little dog here. This is GIMP version 2. I'll double click that, and when I double click that, it'll open up something that looks like this. And so I end up with a lot of little panels here that I can move around, and these panels will be of interest and of use to you in just a little bit. So if I go up here to File, in my image manipulation file, and Open, my computer's lagging a little bit. If I go to my desktop, and if I find that puppy dog eyes 1, and I'm going to say open that, it should open things up just nice. And here's my little puppy dog picture now. I can expand this to use the full screen here. And then if I go down into, here's a nice menu set for you that gives you a lot of options for things that you can do, and we'll go through some of these. Obviously, File is where you can open and save your compositions and close them. Edit's where we can add some copy and pasting and adjust your preferences and that sort of thing. Select allows you to select regions or select object things within your image. View is the part that I want to see. View, so I can see this image at 100% or go to 100% 1-to-1 so I can see what it looks like. I can also go down here and see that here. So I could say 50%, I could say 100%, and that's important. If I go to image, I can make duplicates of this. I can change the mode, meaning right now it's in RGB mode. If I wanted to make it black and white, I can go to grayscale mode by just simply clicking it. I'm going to hit Control Z and go undo that. Image, I can transform that. I can flip it. If I wanted to flip it horizontally, I can do so. I'm going to hit Control Z to back out of that. So there's a lot of things that I can do right off the bat. If I want to rotate it, I can do that by just clicking it. It'll rotate it. I'm hitting Control Z to go back. And there are other things that you can do. Now I'm not going through every single possible thing that we can do. We're going to talk about layers separately in just a little bit. Layers has to do with how you stack items on top of one another. Pretend that this image is one piece of clear transparent or a transparent element. If I wanted to put something on top of it, instead of painting on it itself, I would put a clear layer over it and paint on that. That way it's separated. It'd be very hard to go back and make changes to something I'm actually painting on. It's like taking wallpaper off of your walls. It's easier to remove the wallpaper when it's on a separate layer than it is to paint on your walls necessarily, than to try to remove the paint. So I could tear off that wallpaper, leaving the walls without, although that is difficult to do, but that's the idea, just different layers, separate things. I could adjust colors right here. So this is where I could change or make some changes to this. They have some auto features here under color, where if I wanted to go and adjust the white balance, I could. Notice how the white becomes more white and the colors and the darks become more dark. That's an automatic feature to adjust so that it adjusts for the types of lighting in the image. There's also color enhance. If I enhance the colors, sometimes it's not always better. This gives me more of a yellow. I don't actually like that. I like it when it's a little bit more white colors. I can do some other things. I don't know what everything means, so I don't mess with all of it. And so that's something that I could use. There's also values up here that I could choose, like color balance. If I choose a color balance option, as I adjust the certain values, I can put in more cyan or add more red. I can add more magenta color to it, or I can add more green to it. So this in itself can allow me to change up the actual colors of this dog, and that's adjusting the midtones. If I wanted to change the dark tones, so these regions down here, if I want to add more dark to those regions, anything that's darker, I can certainly do that. And by just doing these kind of things, you can change and manipulate the way your actual image looks. Now if I wanted to keep that, I would say okay. If I didn't, I'd say cancel. And I'll go back to my little puppy dog here. There are filters that you can use, so there's a lot of things here you can experiment with and see what happens. You can always hit Control Z to undo it. Tools, there's selection tools. We'll be looking, all these tools are for selecting a region of your image. So what we're doing with GIMP, with selection, we're choosing pixels. I want to show you something. This image, by hitting the plus on my keypad, I can go closer and closer and closer to this. And when you get closer and closer and closer, you're going to realize that this image is really made up of tiny little squares. So you can see a square here, of all single colors. Those colors are actually held in what's called a pixel. And we're manipulating pixels. So this picture is really made up of a bunch of little colored squares. When we get far enough away from them, it looks like an image, and it looks pretty clean and really good. The more pixels you can have in an image, the finer the details and the cleaner it looks. The fewer and larger the pixels are, the more jagged and rough that image is going to look. So you can see around the edge how there's lots of stair-stepping going on. Oops, stair-stepping happening with these colors, jagged, 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 to make kind of a curve. Okay, so that's something to consider. So when we're using something like a selection tool, those selection tools are grabbing and moving pixels. So if I was to take a selection tool from over here or from up here, I can choose different kinds. So there's a lot of different kinds of selection tools, and here's a row of them right here: rectangle, an oval, a lasso. and there's what's called a magic wand if you're in Photoshop. So if I was to use that, I can actually go into my picture, drag a region, take that region, and I can actually use that selection here. I'm going to say Control Z, and I'm actually going to cut that region out. I've removed that region of pixels from this image, and I'm going to hit Control V. Now look what's happening over here. Over here, it places it on a new layer. It's a layer on top of another one. Now, it doesn't currently look like anything's happened, but if I go to my Move tool, this tool right here, and if I click on this and move it, you can see that that layer exists separately from the original layer. So this is on top of that. If I was to change that by clicking on that little eyeball, I can hide it. Now if I want this to become an actual layer and say separate it from this little puppy dog, I can right click on this and say to new layer. And when I do that, I have basically an image floating separated. So this gray checkerboard region around this image is that imaginary transparent space. That's that clear plastic, if you will. If I was painting on a window, that clear glass around where the paint sits. So this is transparent and this is opaque. So that's how come I can see something below it. So if I was to take this and move it around, I can place it over my other area. If I was to take this and move it on top by clicking on this, now it's on top of this. This still exists, it's here, but it's underneath this image. See how that works? And so that's a little bit about layering. You're going to use layers to your advantage. If I want to move that back down, go here and click it down. I'm going to hit Z. I'm going to move these things back into position. Now I'm going to move this back up. Okay? Now that is very important to understand. Now one quick thing, all of these little tools here, if I double click them, I'm going to get some options that pop up, tool options. And one of the things that I want to do with this move tool is always move the active layer. I don't want to accidentally be able to move something if I'm clicking on it. That is kind of handy, but sometimes that can be difficult if I'm not clicking on the exact same thing. I'm hitting undo. So I want to say click on active layer. So when I click that layer over here, that's the only thing I can grab. If I grab anywhere outside of that, I'm only going to be moving that layer. Now if I want to move that back into position, I can, and then I can kind of hide it. Now every tool has attributes, meaning that if I double click on a tool like this paintbrush, I'm going to get different attributes for it that allow me to change the way it looks or the way it's used. Alright, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So this is what we want to look at. So we're looking at the menus, the toolbox, which is what I just showed you on the left hand side, the layers, and brushes, and zooming in and zooming out by using the plus or minus key on the keypad. Now, one of the things that's important, some of the options on the selection tools, I'm going to look at these selection tools as I'm talking about it, is that we have the ability to feather edges, round corners, and expand. And there's a lot of things that you can do to check that out. So a lot of these things you just kind of have to work on your own so that you can get a feel for what they do. But I'll just demonstrate them real quickly. So if I go back to my selection tool and I go down here and I say feather edge, that means when I select on, and I'm going to increase the radius a lot. So if I go down and I select a region of this puppy and I extract it and I say Control X and I move it, notice how that has a feathered fading occurring. So if I hit Control V and I select that and I move that around, it has chosen a region and it's feathered that out. So instead of getting that harsh edge like I had right here, I get this nice feathering. Okay? I'm going to Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, and I'm going to pretend I didn't do that. Now this also has the ability to round corners. This has some rounded corners on it, and it has some other attributes that you could adjust. Same thing for all of these, the round one, and the lasso. The lasso allows you to just drag a region, and I need to go back to the end, and then whatever's in that I can remove. And notice that it's only doing it to the layer that's active. It didn't do anything to this layer here. The puppy dog eye is still active, or is still